Good morning, everybody. This is Stephen Pugh of the Home Bible College. I want to do a lecture for the second year students of the Home Bible College. This is lecture 21, and the subject is the two books of Amos and Obadiah. Now, these are not big books. The first book, Amos, has 9 chapters, which is quite a substantial book, I suppose, written by Amos to pronounce God's judgment on Israel, that is, on the northern kingdom. Israel, the northern kingdom, were idolatrous and oppressed the poor, and for these two sins they would be taken into captivity. Written probably in about 760 to 750 BC, Assyria did conquer Israel as Amos predicted. So there's 3 things in the book of Amos. First of all, we have the judgment announced. They have the reasons for God's judgment, and then we have the visions of judgment. What these prophets did is they very often had a vision. They had a sort of a video played into their minds, whereby they were able to see the actual events. This is what we call a seer, someone who sees events beforehand. So in this first part, judgment on the surrounding nations, chapter 1 verse 1 to 2 verse 5, we see that God will judge Israel's enemies. Okay? God always acts in perfect justice, not only for Israel, but upon all Israel's enemies. The second part, which is from chapter 2 verse 6 to chapter 6 verse 13, is a series of 6 passages in which the judgment on Judah and on Israel is described. Okay, I won't go into all of that detail here and now, but there we are. That's the judgment of God upon Judah and upon Israel. You see, though God may judge the surrounding nations, he will also deal in perfect judgment upon Israel themselves and upon Judah. And then the last part, which is chapter 7 verse 1 to chapter 9 verse 15, the end of the book, we have visions of the future. We have 3 visions of destruction, and we have Amos and Amaziah. We have the basket of fruit, we have the end is near, we find that there is no escape, and we find in the very end that Israel will repent. So this is a book of not only warnings of judgment, but this is a book of the prediction that Israel will return unto the Lord their God in the day of the Lord. Wow. Now the book of Obadiah rather, is a very small book. It has only 21 verses, for example. Obadiah, the fact that it's very small, we mustn't despise this little book. If brevity is a virtue, then Obadiah is a very amazing book. This particular book deals with the judgment of God upon Edom. Edom were those descendants of Esau. And Obadiah writes to the Edomites to warn them not to oppress Judah. The date of the prophecy is not known, but it was probably written after the division and before the captivity. The key word is Edom, of course, and Obadiah is the shortest book in the Old Testament. The Edomites descended from Esau, the brother of Jacob. And why did God love Jacob but hate Esau? Well, the answer is found in this book. The sin of Esau was pride and self-sufficiency and a feeling of supremacy over his brother. The sin of Esau was something which came out in the national character. It was something that was taught from mother to son, mother to son, mother to son, down the generations. The Egyptian, Assyrian and the Babylonian armies put money and treasure there, but there were few to hold off a very large force of raiders. They lived in a false sense of security, and they despised God and his promises. And we can see this in the life not only of Jacob and Esau, we see it down the centuries. In Obadiah chapter 1 verse 6 it says, "How are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up?" So we have two things then. We have Edom's destruction foretold, and we have Israel's restoration foretold. So it's prophecy, isn't it? The first part is from verse 1 to 9. This is the charge from God against Edom. Verse 10 to 14 we have the crime of Edom. And verse 15 to 16 we have the catastrophe of the judgment of God that falls on Edom. The second part, which is verse 17 to 21, speaks of Israel's restoration. We have first of all the condition of Israel, verse 17, verse 18 the calling of Israel, and 19 to 21 the consummation of all things. You see, Israel will be restored in the day of the Lord, but in the meanwhile they may be called by the Lord, "Not my people." So there's the two books, the book of Amos and the book of Obadiah. Wonderful books, so little read today, but we need to delve into this, and we need to understand it's not a book written for Christians. It's not a book written for the present age in which we live, but that doesn't take anything away from it. This is a message of God to a particular nation, and he's going to speak to them directly and explain to them what's going to happen to them in the future. Well, God bless you. Look forward to speaking to you next time. Have a wonderful day. Bye for now.